I'm Cindy Ryan, and we're here today to talk to Gary Hennerberg about a new book that he has called Urges, which is about a mysterious compulsive disorder you don't hear much about called Trichotillomania. So, Gary, tell us what Trichotillomania is.
Trichotillomania is, in its shortest description, is compulsive hair pulling. People who pull scalp hair, eyelashes, eyebrows. It's a rather obscure disorder in many ways because people don't talk about it, yet there are an estimated 6 to 10 million people in the United States alone who live with trichotillomania.
Your book is really about two things, I think: a journey in revealing a secret that you kept for many, many years. It's also about your faith journey. How do those two things work together, your faith and unveiling this secret?
Well, it was a secret which I kept for about 45 years of my life. Very, very few people ever knew that I was a compulsive hair puller. I grew up thinking I was the only person in the world who pulled my hair. And my parents knew of it, knew that I pulled hair, but they had no idea what the name was. They knew nothing about it because there was so little information at that time. Thankfully, today there is much more information about trichotillomania. But even with the information that's available, there are still millions of people who hide it, who shamefully conceal it, because it's one of those disorders that you just don't understand why you have it, why you have that urge to want to pull your hair, and you really are concerned about being ostracized, that people will not want to have anything to do with you because of what they see as something that you should just simply be able to stop, and you can't.
I know your faith is an important part of giving you the strength to deal with this, and woven in and out of your stories in the book is how much faith had influenced you. Can you talk a little bit about the power of faith in this journey?
There are many times that I would pray and wonder, why, God, do I have this disorder? And I don't know that I ever had an answer. I had always believed that someday if I prayed hard enough that it would be gone. And that was never the case. But my faith enabled me to keep going, to keep believing that there was something bigger, something more important. And I really think it took until I was an adult, and in fact really not all that many years ago, to really come around to the point of realizing that this is how I was created. God created me in this way, that I would have this compulsive disorder called trichotillomania, and that perhaps part of my life's challenge would be how I would deal with it and how I would respond to it. So it was less about the disorder itself and more about how I responded to it, and maybe how I could be hopefully an inspiration perhaps to other people to carry on with their lives.
So can you tell us a little bit about some of the good things that have happened since you started telling the secret and wrote the book?
Well, there have been some really, really good things that have happened. For one thing, it's interesting how many people, they are not at all judgmental about, at least about my life with it. I think it would be easy for people to be somehow repulsed by the idea of someone who compulsively pulls hair. But for the most part, when I explain my life to people and they hear the story, I don't sense that whatsoever. I do feel a level of acceptance there. I know that of people who have read my book, the emails that I have received, the letters that I have received have also enabled people to open up. I have one teenage boy who heard of my book through the wonders of social media, through a connection through a Twitter and a Facebook, who was directed to my website and read the first chapter of my book. And when he did that, for him, it enabled him to go into his classroom where he's a freshman in high school and to talk to his teen leadership class about the fact that he had this compulsive disorder where he, and his classmates did not know why he had no hair. He wore caps and hats. And for him, it was a very liberating experience. And for him, he said it really, in many ways, changed his life because he finally was able to take my words and knowing that it mirrored very much of what he was feeling. He was able to continue on and to make it public for him. And he had the same type of reaction that I have had with other people, and that is they don't really have a negative reaction to it when you tell them.
I think people appreciate the truth, I guess, or knowing that everybody struggles with something.
I think that's true.
Good. Anything else you'd like to tell us about?
I think the one thing that needs to be understood too is the impact that parents have with children who start pulling hair, because hair pulling tends to begin for most of us when we are children. And for parents, it's a very hard thing to understand why my child is pulling hair. And thankfully today we know a lot more about it than we did when I was growing up. But I can always remember the time where my mom and dad took me to a doctor out of desperation. They didn't know what to do. And I'll always remember him combing through my hair and shining a light on my hair, which was rather strange. And from out of nowhere, he asked, "Why do you pull your hair, son?" And I froze. And that was the first time I'd ever had a realization that he could identify that. And I knew that the only way he would know that would be because of my parents having told him. And it was only after writing my book, when my parents read the book, and my mom shared with me the rest of the story of that day. And the rest of the story of that day, which I did not know until only recently, was that the doctor had sent me out to the waiting room, and he talked to my mom and dad for a few minutes. And the doctor, in effect, blamed my parents for having spent too much and given too much attention to my younger sister. And that's just how misunderstood this was. And my message to parents is to give your child unconditional love. Give them positive affirmations, support them. Don't tell them just stop, because it doesn't work that way. But be supportive. Unconditional love those are the two words that I want parents to know as much as anything to give to their kids.
I know you have a CD that's designed to help people maybe relax who are going through this. Tell us about that.
The CD is called Doses of Comfort for Hair Pullers, and it is a CD that I have recorded with my voice with 10 different messages, about 42 minutes worth of programming that talk about accepting yourself, the self-acceptance, about overcoming shame, about how you reset your emotional button whenever the urges become very intense. I don't promise that it can cure a person from trichotillomania, because there simply is no known cure. But it's my hope that someone can listen to those kinds of messages and to at least be able to pause and reflect and perhaps step away from it, even if only for a few minutes.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.